Thank you, Michael. So I was asked to share with you how did I discern my calling to Regnum Christi. And I wanted to have for you an image of the woman at the well, because really that's where the call was affirmed, really, was encountering Christ at the well. So just to give you background, most of you know me. My name is Tima. I've been married it'll be 23 years in September, and I have 4 boys. Cradle Catholic. I'm actually Michael's aunt, so same family, raised in the faith, going to Mass every Sunday, praying the rosary together, things like that. And I had the gift of, my mom was involved in the charismatic renewal. So I did have the gift of growing up. I attended a few youth retreats with the charismatic movement, but I didn't feel called there. There was something I was looking for that wasn't there. But one thing it did do for me was it affirmed that, yes, the Holy Spirit is very much alive and well in the Catholic Church, which was good at that point. It was a good thing that God allowed that. But of course, I went through that stage, in my young adult life where I thought I knew more than what the church had to offer. So I kind of was picking and choosing what I wanted and what I was leaving behind, and not really learning more. But 12 years ago, so I had been married already for over 10 years, but that's the first time that I learned that Regnum Christi existed. And we learned about it through our involvement in different programs that was offered in our parish in Milton at Holy Rosary. It started with, we enrolled our kids in Vacation Bible School, and that's where I first met Helen. I think I had already met Paula actually in Mass, but a few of the members in Milton, that was the first place that I had any exposure to them. And then Dave and I, my husband, we signed up to join a Familia program. And Familia is another program of Regnum Christi. It was more like catechism. It was an opportunity for us to learn about our faith. And again, met more people involved in Regnum Christi. And then they started, the Conquest Club was when it actually first started. It was just a little over 10 years ago in Milton. And we had only our 2 older boys at the time, but of course, it's a good way for them to learn more about their faith, so we signed them up too. But all these programs in their flyers and things, they had this tagline that said, sponsored by Regnum Christi. So what is Regnum Christi? The question started coming up in my mind. And I knew that the ladies I met in the program, they were so full of joy, and they found peace in their vocation, whereas I was kind of struggling with it, in their vocation as a mom and as a wife. And they had something I wanted, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what that was. And at the time, Dave and I, we were leaders for a marriage preparation course, but through St. Anne's in Brampton, our old parish where we were before we moved to Milton. And that only kept us busy once a year. And we were starting to feel like, we could probably be doing more than just the once a year leading marriage prep, right? But we weren't sure what that meant. We just knew something, God may be calling us to something else, but we didn't know what. Anyway, as Providence would have it, the Regnum Christi members in Milton held a discernment course. So similar to what you're attending today, but it was a 3-session course, and it was held in one of the members' homes. And this, of course, we were, I had already had this question, what is Regnum Christi? So I was like, yeah, I'll come to the discernment course. Dave and I were invited to attend, and we went through 2 of the sessions. And the more I learned about Regnum Christi, the more I got to know the members that were involved, the more I was attracted to it. But there was one thing holding me back. Something was holding me back. Anyway, before the 3rd session, I attended a weekend retreat like we had just last weekend. I think a few of you were there. I attended it was a silent retreat for women. The same type we offer today. We offer twice a year for women and once a year for men. And during the retreat, Father Kenneth was a legionary here at that time. He would lead us through these meditations on different gospels. And something struck me though when he read the passage of the Samaritan woman at the well. After his talk, we were given time to pray. And I went into the chapel and I read this passage. And I spiritually placed myself there. Christ is asking me for some water. And it was really, he's asking me to serve him. That's what I was seeing. And I realized what was holding me back from giving my yes to serve him through Regnum Christi. Because I was that woman at the well, coming to the well when no one else could see the real me, right? I was like, I don't really know my faith. I'm still learning. I've got this past where I've made decisions that are contrary to what Christ wanted for me in my youth and in the beginning years of my marriage. You know, they talk about charity, love in action. Like, I'm blunt. I tell it like it is most of the time. I'm like, charity? Like, I don't know if I can do that, right? So all these excuses I was giving Christ as to why I couldn't give him this water that he was asking me for. And basically, I felt this call to like, okay, so read the passage again. I know your past. I know your present. Read the passage again. And what struck me the second time was, wow, this woman got a whole town to come to know Christ. You know, it didn't matter that she had 5 husbands and the one she had now wasn't her husband. Like, he still used her. You know, and yeah, I don't have 5 husbands, one's enough. But but yeah. But I felt like, you know, it was time for me to do what the Samaritan woman did and leave my jug at the well and just say yes and just go out. And that really was the moment. So I left that chapel ready to say yes. But I still had questions. Like, I really didn't understand what that yes even meant. I knew that we had all these programs of Familia, Conquest, Challenge, Pilgrim Queen of the Family, where the shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe goes from family to family and they pray a rosary together. And I thought, well, you know, what is it that I'm assuming that my yes meant I was going to be involved in one of these programs. And I knew Familia, you know, that's the one I was already participating in. I thought, oh, maybe I'll lead a team in Familia. I don't know, I had my own plans. But of course, when you tell God your plans, you make him laugh, right? Because he's got bigger plans than that. And Christ doesn't provide the details, right? And he wants your yes, and then the details come later. And we see that over and over again in Scripture too, and it's no different in our own life. It was really a call to sort of learn by doing, and 12 years later, I'm still learning by doing. But the affirmation came, the affirmation of that experience I had in the chapel came not too long after. Christ didn't waste any time. As I was making my way back to the conference room to hear the next meditation, the next talk, a Regnum Christi member approached me. I know it's a silent retreat, but we always cheat a little anyway. She approached me and she asked me, how I was doing, if I was ready to make a decision in my discernment. She must have seen that I was bubbling over. I don't know, because it was the perfect time to ask, because I was like, yes, I'm ready to say yes, and that was it, and I haven't looked back since. I want to mention, though, I didn't write it down. I have still a minute or two, because I was inspired as I was sitting there listening to Michael to add to the discernment, because it's not a one-time yes. It's a continual yes, because I started working in Familia, and then there's been other things through the movement I've had to say yes to, and it's just a constant yes, and really the discerning continues, because there are other decisions that have to be made, and the balancing, bringing order to my life, balancing that I've got to spend time with God, yes, and with my family, with my husband, foremost, my kids, and then I have to work, and I have to fit in whatever apostolate God has called me to do, the gifts he's asked me to put at the service of the church. I got to discern how to balance all that. But for me, a pinnacle point came actually after we learned about the truth of our founder's double life. And if you have questions about that, you can ask one of us in between, I guess, the breaks and that. But anyway, I was leading a Familia team at that time, and we had just gone over talking about different movements, and some questions came up about our founder, and I defended, because at that time nothing had been proven, so I defended him. And then it was like a couple weeks later that the news came out, and I was like, oh, okay. here we go. I've got to call these ladies now and say, well, I just learned that it's, it's actually it's all true and worse even than we thought, actually. Anyway, but one of the women challenged me. She said to me, how can you be involved in something with scandal? And I said to her, well, that's like asking me how I can be Catholic, right? I mean, the church is holy because Christ started it. And Regnum Christi is what it is because Christ called me here, called us here. And I realized in that moment, it was like discerning again. Why am I here? Like Michael asked, and I had to ask myself that then. And it was like, I'm here because Christ called me. And if at that time the Pope had said, Regnum Christi is no more, then that call was still there. So I would have turned to Christ and the church and say, well, then where else can I serve? Because I've been called to serve. So where else can I serve? And, thank goodness for the love and mercy of Christ and the church that we're still here. And it's actually, we're at the tail end of the renewal, which is beautiful. But I just wanted to add that whole idea of the constant discernment, and that really it is a call from Christ, and nothing changes that. When Christ calls you to something, that's what it is. He's the root of the call. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tima. That was